Hey, Dave here, Fix and Fly RC. Hey, wanted to do a quick video on Spektrum receivers and a problem I ran into trying to hook up a new receiver, their AR10360T. It was a receiver that came with a plane that I bought off Marketplace. Still brand new in the pack. The plane had never been flown. And so first of all, I want to get into it. I want to give a shout out to one of the guys that has a really good YouTube site. It's BD Tennessee. I'll put a link in the description here. But he does a lot of great videos, and he's been a lot of help to me on 2 or 3 different issues over the last year. So very knowledgeable, very willing to help, and I'll explain how he helped me in this one as well. But just a big shout out to him, and go check his site out. He does a good job of a lot of how-to type stuff. So give him a shout, and give him a look, give him a like. Anyway, so I get this plane. I got the new receiver, so I'll go to start to hook up the plane. It's got a BEC in the ESC. So plug it up like I normally do. Put the throttle cable in. I just can't get it to sync up properly. It won't sync. The ESC keeps beeping. So I thought, well, maybe I will just go ahead and update the firmware. And because I didn't know how old it was, probably hadn't been updated to AS3X Plus. So I said, well, I'll just go ahead and do that. So I hooked it up to my computer, to the Spektrum site, to try to update it. Put the power cable in, the power would flash. But it would never connect to the Spektrum site, and so I made contact with Spektrum and through their chat, and kind of had some back and forth with them a little bit. And their recommendation was that I send it back and let them look at it. So I said that makes sense, because something wasn't quite right. And I actually had an older receiver that I knew was bad, that came out of a bind and fly plane. And so I said, well, I'm just going to send it back as well. It was an AR631, 631. And so sent them back. And if you never used the H&H Horizon Hobby or the Spektrum site for the receivers or their controllers, I've sent some stuff back 2 or 3 times. They're very quick to turn things around, and very really good customer service there. So I about 3-4 days after they received it, I get a note back from them that they checked the new receiver out, and checked out fine, had no problems, but they went and updated it anyway, and but they had done full check, and just being great customer service, they just went ahead and sent me another 631 receiver to replace the broken one I sent them. So really fantastic customer service. Get the receiver back, plug it back up into the plane, exact same thing. Try to plug it back up to the website, exact same thing. So I'm like, something's just not quite right. So I grab another receiver that I have, and it was the 630, actually the 631 they sent me. Plugged it up, bound up, everything worked fine. So I said, well, let me try another one. So I actually grabbed another receiver out of another plane that I was flying, and just to check, same thing, bound up, no issues, no problems. So I'm really confused, because I got 2 receivers on the plane, so it can't, it's not the plane. So the following day I get on chat with them, and tell them what had happened. And so the guy recommended that I take the BEC out of the bind port, and try another empty port, or an empty channel, and see if that worked. And because he said maybe it was keeping it in bind. It didn't make sense to me, but I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. But I got on YouTube, and I was doing some searches, trying to find, this receiver, anybody, just looking for something. And I had ran into BD Tennessee's. He had done a video on this receiver a couple years ago. And so I just went ahead and sent him a note and said, hey, explain to him the problem. and he immediately came back and said, I can tell you what your problem is that you got your servo wires backwards, and and he explained to me what it was. And what they've done is, if you look at, I've got here like 4 receivers. So this is the AR10360T. This is one I'm flying in an A10 right now. And if you've hooked these up, if you haven't hooked one up before, like if you've only bought bonding flies, you notice the servo cables, there are 3 colors. There's a black, sometimes it's a brown, but there's a darker color. Then the middle is going to be a red, and then the other end's either going to be white or a yellow. It depends on, but one thing to note, that the dark color is always your negative, right? And then the red wire is your positive, and then the yellow or white is going to be your signal wire. And so in all receivers up to this point, so my AR836010, my AR631, I've got an AR36B, I've got an AR36A. And if you look at all of them, and you can see it, it's on the edge. You won't be able to read it here, but it'll tell you there's the signal, a positive, and a negative. And the way I've always hooked up, I would just, if you look at the wire, that just means if you look at the contacts that you can see, the silver contacts here, you just plug them in. Like if you're starting from channel 1, you'll see the contacts, and that's negative. The negative's down, right? And then all the channels, whichever you're using, you just plug them in the same way, all the way in the same direction, right? So it's the same thing with the 631, the 36A, the 36B, all of them the same way. Well, for some reason or another, the 3610, and I didn't pull it out because it's in the plane hooked up. I didn't want to pull it out once I got it hooked up. For some reason or another, that is now backwards. They've swapped it. Maybe backwards is probably a different word. So now, in that, negative is on the top side of the connector with the signal on the bottom. So before, all the other connectors, when you plugged it up this way, in this one, you're going to plug it up the other way. And so sure enough, I plugged it in, plugged the BC throttle cable in, powered up just fine, synced, bound up, no problems, no issues. So it was just one of those situations. You can say, I should have looked closer, and I guess maybe that's true. But I just assumed that all the connectors would be the same, like they would use the same ICD on all of them, so that you wouldn't have to think about stuff like that. But anyway, I did contact Horizon back, had a really good chat with the guy, apologized, that, they probably should have known to, told me that says, hey, make sure you're turning it the right way. So, they were going to make sure that the other service people knew that. So if anybody else has that problem, maybe I'm the only one that didn't, because you got to really look, on it and check it out. But, I assumed, and for those that know what happens when you assume stuff, that's what happened to me, I guess. But anyway, just want to put a quick video out there just so anybody else has that problem. You don't run into that same problem. And again, big shout out to Brandon at BD Tennessee. He's one of the good guys that makes this hobby fun, that is willing to to share his knowledge and what he's learned. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, but I'm not at his level for sure. I'm still just kind of learning this stuff. So again, this is one of those things, in the future I'll know to check before I start plugging things up, any new receiver. But anyway, hope this video helps somebody. You can always give me a comment or a thumbs up, and just let me know. And appreciate everything the community's doing out there, and hope springtime's right here with us, and hope we get some flying in here pretty soon. So have a good one. Dave here, Fix and Fly RC, out.